Hey everybody, welcome. Just give the stream a second to catch up. Oh, I did it. I forgot my water. I'll be back in 3 seconds. 1 moment. Back. Hey everybody, what's up? It's Tuesday afternoon, 2 p.m. and we are here for the Adventure Prep stream. How are y'all doing? Talk to me. It is a rainy Tuesday here in Los Angeles. I know, that's very strange. Those of you who don't know, I live in LA, and LA is constantly like sunny all the time, obnoxiously so. And so we're having a little bit of a rainstorm, which is kind of nice. Hey, what's up, David? How you doing? Thanks for coming, man. I was digging chatting with you about GIF in the Discord. I'll have to get back to that when I'm done with the stream. Yeah, but it's super rainy out today. I haven't had a chance to go outside yet, but I kind of want to just like randomly run to the grocery store for no reason, so that way I can wear my cloak. It's just pouring out here, which is lovely. Although, kind of a disaster if you're driving in LA because none of the streets are properly designed to drain that water, so it can actually be kind of dangerous. Yeah, but it's Tuesday. We are here to do some adventure prep. What's going on with y'all? How's your campaigns going? Talk to me. So we're talking about Ravenloft today. That is one of the 400,000 games I'm running right now. I have a sort of urban sprawl style Ravenloft game that I'm running in kind of a homemade domain of dread called Falcon. And it's a little bit inspired by magic sets. There's some Innistrad in there. It's definitely like a kind of reinterpretation of Curse of Strahd. And I'm running it for a party of he visited for 6 days and it rained really crazy. David says he visited LA for 6 days and it rained 4 of those days. That's very un-LA. It's funny you say that, David, because my sister has come out to visit a couple of times, and every time she's come out, it has rained or been really like misty, which is, again, very, very unusual to what it's actually like here. That's wild that you had a similar experience. But yeah, most of the year it is very sunny. Like, again, irritatingly so. Anyway, so my party is a group of like 12-year-olds, and they are basically all associated with famed vampire hunter Rudolph von Richten. I was gonna say spoiler alert, but like none of you are playing in the campaign, so like, what's the deal? The setting is a kind of like a Dickensian urban sprawl, right? Sort of like a London. Victorian London stagecoaches and yellow fog and the Great Stink and like a lot of that kind of a vibe, right? What we are going for is a kind of a reinterpretation of a lot of the elements of Curse of Strahd. One of my players, yeah, it only rains when people visit. That's 100% true, David. It only rains when people visit. A lot of the elements of Curse of Strahd kind of reinterpreted for the sake of a couple players who have already played there. So what we're going to do today, the players have played through the little prologue where they kind of explore Von Richten's abandoned manor, and they pursue him down into the sewers and eventually meet up with him in his kind of like vampire hunter cave, this like sanctum that he has set up in the sewers of the city. They've played through that. They're just about to meet him, and then he's going to basically lay a map down on the table in front of them that kind of displays the whole city. So I have used Fantasy Cities, this medieval fantasy generator, to create this version of Falcon. But I need to go through and basically design the individual little districts and areas and figure out what's there and what's going on and all of that stuff. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm realizing it might be helpful to have some information about the city's history, because we talked about that on a previous stream, but we didn't really go too deeply into, but you know, it might be good to cover some of that here. So let me actually add just a very brief summary. History of Falcon. So ancient history, ancient, and then we'll say like redemption, and then we'll say return. So the ancient history of Falcon is that it was a city, a prosperous coastal city. Falcon was ruled by an archduchess. Archduchess, and but fell into darkness when a visiting conqueror married her and plunged the city into the domains of dread. Mist encircled the walls, and Falcon became a haven for blood-sucking monsters. So basically the idea here is that rather than Strahd kind of dwelling in Barovia permanently, this is kind of like what would have happened if he had stopped during his conquerings and found, like, if Tatiana wasn't a peasant girl, if she was a noble, and then he married her for political convenience, but he was like already a vampire and basically turning the city into it. So rather than like this tragic love story, Strahd sort of had everything he wanted, right? And they married and they ruled this city together. Because that obviously kind of throws in the face of who Strahd is as a character. Strahd's all about the tragedy, but he doesn't factor into the campaign, so it's just kind of in the background. And he's just called like the prince consort is the term. So he's not really a primary character. He's not even called Strahd necessarily. But then what happened is a young Rudolf von Richten. All right, with the help of the Vistani, a young Rudolf von Richten escaped the city. Help of the Vistani, a young Rudolf van Richten escaped the city and dedicated his life to cleansing Falcon of its evils, returning as so kind of like a young Vesemir thing, right? Like, he's not old yet. He's kind of returning as a potent vampire hunter. He slew the Dark Lord and drove his bride into hiding. The Dark Lord dead. Falcon emerged from the mists. And peace returned. Now, as von Richten ages, the mists once again begin to encroach. A new Dark Lord has arisen in Falcon, but the question remains, who? Yeah, and that's kind of where we're at. The big twist reveal, while he initially suspects a number of powerful monsters in the city, Van Richten has no idea that he, a perpetual monster hunting zealot, has become the Dark Lord. So the idea is that it's kind of like this heretical witch hunt thing, right? That like his prison is that there's always a Dark Lord out there that he's hunting, he can never find. And that like his rules became so draconian. He was hunting down anyone who had ever associated with the monsters, right? He kind of becomes the monster himself. And it's all about like you work with him originally, and then as it goes on and you keep exposing more of these people and none of them turn out to be the Dark Lord, you start to realize like his tactics are such and his kind of like brutality is such that he's the only one that fits the bill, right? That's kind of like the big reveal. I love Von Richten. He's one of my favorite characters. He is my favorite character in Ravenloft, and so I really wanted to highlight him in a way where he wasn't just kind of like some cool guy in the background. I wanted to make him front and center. And so the party's task basically throughout the campaign is to go through. Von Richten will do a bunch of research, discover like, oh, okay, I think it's this person. Like the Duchess escapes. She's the first one, right? Tatiana. And so when the mists kind of begin to encroach, he's like, it's got to be her. She got away. Right now she wants revenge. You go and you kill her, and the mists still stay there. It's like, okay, well, it must be these werewolves that are kind of plaguing the outskirts of the city. It's got to be them. Okay, you go and do that. Like, oh, well, maybe it's these hags that have been preying on the populace. Okay, you go and kill them. Still, the mists don't lift, right? Like, as you peel away more and more of the options, you begin to discover, like, no, it's him. He's the Dark Lord. Great. Awesome. Hey, what's up, Hunter Fox? Welcome. Thanks for coming. Yeah, so that's kind of the history of Falcon and where we're at right now, kind of when the campaign begins. The party is just... Yeah, exactly. Are we the baddies? Absolutely. The party is just beginning to realize, or is just about to go and meet Von Richten. We're only like 2 sessions in. So what I want to do this session is I want to lay out the map of Falcon in front of them as soon as they're through the prologue and explain, like, okay, here's the deal. Here are all the different areas of the city. And I would love to know a little bit about each one of those districts. So we don't have to go crazy. I can kind of build them as we play and depending on where they go. But it would be lovely to know, like, the rough, like, theme of the place, then maybe a couple of locations or interesting quirks about the different districts. So the only name on this map currently that is final is Falcon. The rest of it can all change. I can like click on the individual districts and change their names. So none of these names are final. They're just the ones that they came with. Although I actually do kind of think Rainway is an interesting name for a district. So as you can see, I wanted to have like a place that would have been a real city in the real world, right? But I wanted it to be very big and again, kind of like London urban sprawl sort of a vibe, right? You've got like 4 districts inside, like 4.5, like 5 districts inside the walls. And then 2 outside. You've got the Winter Gate in the north and Lord Square in the south. I wanted it on the water, so it's on some kind of a bay. You can see there on the far like left side of the map. In addition, it's got a couple of roads coming and going, but I imagine that most things beyond the reach of the walls are kind of like shrouded in mist. So I even think like some of these like outer areas here, you can kind of see where it says Winter Gate. I think that stuff is like just beginning to be fringed with mist down this way, right? Only the Vistani can come and go from the city as they can with all the other domains of Dread. Yeah, we're just going to kind of go through the individual districts and try to come up with cool things about them. I might start actually with the sort of like 8th district and talk about the castle, because I believe that that's sort of like the Duke's residence. That's where the Prince Consort would have been, and it's now sort of like a bombed out ruin. So maybe we'll start there. We'll start with District 8. But if you guys want to start thinking of ideas for districts, we've definitely got like some touchstones. Like the 2 kind of shanty towns on the edges kind of imply, you know, poor economic background, you know, more crowded, more squalor. The harbor usually has a little bit of that, but that's what's interesting, right? Is that like if it's closed off, you know, presumably the mists extend out into the ocean as well, right? Presumably there's mists out here in this bay of this kind of by the Winter Gate, right? Then it would make sense that, you know, there'd be a little bit, but there wouldn't be as much like traffic and trade coming in. You know, there are derelict ships that drift in to the harbor, things like that could be kind of cool. So let's put castle here. So I think it's like, I think if it was ruled by a duchess, because I didn't want her to be a countess if we have Count Strahd, right? Like if she's a duchess, then I think it would technically be like a duchy, right? The Duchy of Falcon is maybe its actual title, but I don't know what you call, is it like a ducal palace? Like what do you call the seat for a duchy? I think ducal is the like the term for it, right? I'm gonna look up and see what you call like a duke's residence. But I think palace is kind of cool. Whatever it's called, we can figure it out. I'm trying to think, what do we know about it? First of all, I think it's like a big, grand, like Gothic structure. And I think that's true of most of Falcon. I definitely want to go for, again, like a Victorian London, but kind of cranked, you know, like a Sweeney Todd's London, or like Bloodborne, I think is a really good touchstone there, right? Like big cathedrals and jagged spires and leering gargoyles and all that kind of stuff, right? Like if Curse of Strahd is kind of like the rural, like provincial horror, right, of like the Carpathian Mountains, I want this to be the kind of like, you know, rain-soaked urban squalor of like Jekyll and Hyde, you know, that kind of a story. So let me look up like Duke's residence, if it has a name, because I don't mind calling it just like the Ducal Palace. The dukedom, I think it's duchy is the term for like the larger like region, but I'm trying to think of like is it called a palace? Is it called a, like, you know, what's the term? I guess it's probably just a palace. I can't find another term for it. I would search online, but it doesn't really work. So we'll just call it the palace for now. But let's see. So it used to be the seat of the Prince Consort's power, right? So let's do like history. Oh, I'm not sure if you guys can see this. Let me make sure that it's visible to you, because I can always adjust it. Yep, okay, you can. Yeah, the manor, I think it's bigger than a manor. I feel like a manor is like too small, right? I think it's a palace. History. Let's scroll this up a little bit. Okay. Once the seat of the Archduchess and her prince consort, the grand palace fell into darkness and debauchery following their... Ooh, we could borrow a little bit from Innistrad and do a thing where, like, if the palace, some of it is inspired by a novel called Anno Dracula, which is like kind of like a revisionist sequel to Dracula, where rather than defeating the monster, Dracula doesn't go for like Mina Harker or Lucy Westenra. He goes for Queen Victoria, right, and turns her, and then like the British Empire kind of becomes like openly vampiric. So it's a little bit inspired by that, where like while Strahd was ruling, vampirism would have been like very rampant and like a thing, and like something that like the high society types of the city would have indulged in, right? So I like the idea that the palace kind of becomes this den of sin, right? That it's like, you know, they're having lavish parties all the time, but like kind of like wild debauches, you know, like they're not like fancy courtly balls. It's this kind of like, you know, there's animals running around, and it's like very kind of barbaric in there. So I like the notion that if that happened, right, that like there would still be like faint decorations and things up from the wedding. Like shortly after the wedding happened, they just kind of threw the doors of the palace open, you know, and people were coming and going all the time, and it was just like a big sort of chaotic nest of iniquity, right? Ever since they threw the doors open and engaged in constant bloodthirsty debauches. Yeah, I kind of like that. That feels right for a theme. So it's like, it's huge, but then eventually Van Richten like came in and hunted down Strahd and killed him, and he drove the rest of the vampires, who call themselves the Sanguinoi is the term, right? The kind of like upper crust of the city's elite, who all sort of became vampires. They're called the Sanguinoi, and a lot of them were slain, but several of them fled into the kind of underground of the city and survived. Among them, Tatiana. Right, so I think now the palace is like still abandoned. You know, maybe there's some kind of a protection on it, but that's one of the early hooks once the characters meet Van Richten, where it's like, hey, you can either, you know, you can go investigate this vampire bar, you can track down this serial killer, or you can go kind of poke around the ruins of the castle, right, and see if you can find any trace of where they might have gone. So it's massive, abandoned palace, like high on a hill, overlooking the city. Doors open, windows broken. Long ago, doors open, windows broken. Long ago, looted and despoiled. Wild animals dwelling in the once opulent splendor, you know, are feral animals now dwelling in the once opulent splendor? Right, I think that's kind of like how it looks on the outside, like gardens overgrown, gates rusted. You know, it basically looks like no one has been here for forever. But I like the idea that obviously something has taken up residence here. You know, there's no way it's been like allowed to stay abandoned. So what do we think? We already have werewolves kind of running amok on the fringes of the city now that the night is back. We have a coven of hags. We have like a kind of in magic you'd call them stitchers, but they're sort of like flesh artificers who like I think they call it the Golem Gang or something like that, where they're basically like the city's police. Sort of a Dr. Frankenstein-esque character who allied with von Richten and creates golems that patrol the streets. Gardens overgrown, gates rusted. Ooh, we do have nightmares that live in the sewers. Or I think I'm calling them horrors rather than nightmares. Inhabitants. Gates rusted. Catacombs that burrow beneath the palace. Dungeons and cells. So definitely like horrors have crept up from below. And they're sort of like generically evil looking horrors that have crept up from below. Grim dancers, night walkers, grim dancers, night walkers. Chittering horrors, emboldened by the endless night. So, you know, you have like some kind of wandering monsters like that, things that dwelled in the deep places beneath the city, you know, creatures of shadow and hunger, you know, kind of like a generic catch-all. Trying to think of like other inhabitants that could potentially still be there. Like, I could see there being like ghosts of the original staff, you know, like people who, because like vampires wouldn't make ghosts, but like, you know, the idea of like the haunted palace where you see, you know, ghostly butlers and stuff moving around. It's just that tricky thing where if a vampire, like, they would have died when vampires killed them, right? And if a vampire kills you, you don't die, you become another vampire, right? So like, why would there be spirits there? I want some kind of powerful monster to have moved in. A demon feels like too strong. You know, there's like something now living in the palace. I don't think it's the Sanguinoid because they would like I think there's a plotline about them like retaking it. But here, I'm gonna grab my monster manual and see if I can pull up anything cool. But like, I'm trying to think what would be living in there. Be right back. I might even get the other document too, because there's a lot of cool stuff in there. You know, my instinct is that it's like a Shelob style giant spider or something, or like an Oni. An Oni would be cool. Shadow dragon, maybe. Just trying to look at my list here. Beholder's a little too wacky. A devil or a demon, it could be, I guess. Maybe a Dracolich, but that's very. I feel like a hook horror is like kind of a random monster. I think a hook horror makes sense as one of the horrors for sure. But I want like, you know, who's the faction? I want like a powerful monster that's kind of like a boss essentially that lives at the upper levels. Ettercaps, like giant spider stuff, gargoyles, like a genie, ghouls. I'm trying to think what would have happened there, right? Like, why would it exist? Ooh, what if it's vampiric mist? I do like Oni. I think an Oni definitely fits somewhere. What about like thick vampiric mist? Ooh, a haunted mirror is cool, whose presence occupies the palace with things, ghosts of the past. I kind of like that. A thick vampiric mist. A Shadowfell fairy dragon. That's cute. That represents the hungering essences of all the vampires that Van Richten slew during his rampage. That's cool. I like the magic mirror too. A haunted mirror that reflects. Ooh, a revenant. That's cool. That reflects. A lot of these could go other places too. They don't all have to be here in the palace. Hey, what's up, Shadowrunner? That reflects events that happened in the palace. Either the wedding night, or even better, the night of Von Richten's attack. Because you can see him killing people, you know, left and right. I mean, the haunted mirror could show, there could be like ghosts of like the servants, right? That like would still be human. There's a great piece of art in Crimson Vow, which is the most recent Magic set. That's like a big vampire wedding where there are like human like waiters at the wedding, right? Between these two vampire clans, and they're wearing these iron collars to protect their neck, right? As they're going around serving like vials of blood, and they're just like looking nervous. I really like that image that they would like, you know, hey, don't eat the staff, please. It makes things a lot harder. So I think that's cool. I want like one more monster. I'm thinking I might do a giant spider. A giant spider that dwells in the upper reaches of the palace. That it is kind of just like haunted with all these different monsters, but there isn't like a great intelligence that lives there. There's some kind of a huge evil spider, which is a monster I've wanted to make for a really long time. Hey, what's up, chat? Yeah, we're talking about Falcon. This is a setting that I'm making for my Ravenloft campaign, kind of like a Dickensian London setting. That's sort of like the where we're playing with the idea that the vampire hunter Van Richten is kind of the new Dark Lord of this particular domain, because he's you know, never rested in his endless hunt for more evil. Okay, cool. So that's the castle. We're gonna call that the Haunted Palace, maybe. I can always change it too. Haunted Palace. Oh, that makes it very small. I don't like that. I just put palace. If I put nothing, is there anything there? Yeah. Pal. We'll just put palace for now. Okay. Great. So let's go to another district. Let's go. I might actually open up a new document, because we did some brainstorming last time. We talked about Ravenloft, and I want to pull that up because that's got some good details in it as well. So if I get a little slow for just a moment, that's because I'm digging around in my Google Docs for it. It's here. It's here. Ooh, I hate that, Hunter Fox. That's great. Puppeteers. That's so good. Puppeteers skeletons to walk about like people. Yeah. Ugh. Ugh. I like that it's sort of like half intelligent, right? Like it's very creepy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the spider is intelligent. Okay, that's great. So yeah, I wonder if it's like layers, where there's like the lower level of the palace, right, is all the like sewer stuff and the catacombs and the horrors. The middle level is like the gardens, and then it's the haunted mirror with all the staff, and the upper level is the giant spider and the like dangling skeletons. I think that's cool. Yeah, I'm into it. Okay, I'm just gonna pull up my Ravenloft campaign notes here and look at those. So the lycanthropes. So I want to talk maybe about this northern district, Wintergate. The northern district, like, because it's on the shantytown. We sort of talked about how the lycanthropes, like, they were historically neutral, enemies of the court. The werewolves were historically neutral, enemies of the court, but not necessarily allies of the were-ravens. Ooh, I love that, Shadow. They think that they're undead skeletons, but they're not, right? Like, they're just being puppeteered. That's great. They assisted Van Richten in overthrowing the vampires, but the moment the dust settled, Van Richten turned on them. And then under the reign of the Dark Lord, the vampires hunted the citizens, would put them at odds with the vampires who needed the citizens for their blood. When the city was freed, Van Richten forbade them from hunting the citizens, and they were forced to hunt outside the city. When the new Dark Lord rises, the mists encroach upon the city. Again, the werewolves are forced to return to hunting the people. Historically allied with the Prince Consort. So they had were-rats, who were historically allied with the Prince Consort, spies and saboteurs in the city. And then were-ravens, who were historically opposed to the Prince Consort and eager to work with Van Richten. So the werewolves, I think, would still kind of have laid claim to the outer edges. Maybe we do a thing where, like, Wintergate and Lord Square, like, whatever their actual names are, you know, like Shanty 1 and Shanty 2 are like the territories of two distinct groups of Or this is Shanty 1, I guess. Or North Shanty. And South Shanty. Are the territories of 2 distinct groups of vampires, and they're kind of like warring over the, or werewolves, they're warring over the city. I like that. History. When Van Richten, after aiding Van Richten, the vampires were kicked from the city. I keep saying vampire. After aiding Van Richten, the werewolves were exiled from the city and fled both north and south, both north and south. They hunted in the surrounding countryside, but lived in Van Richten's shadow. When the mists encroached again, the werewolves had no choice but to return to hunting in the city. So these kind of shanty towns, right, on the outskirts, I like the idea that they have, like, one of the big descriptive elements is that there's a mist kind of moving in, right? That like the northern and southern fringes are northern edge of the shanty town, edge of North Shanty, is slowly, or is swamped with mist. You know, like you can't flee. That it's not completely around the city. Almost as though like the mists themselves didn't care that there were people living there, right? I think that's definitely true of South Shanty as well. And it feels cool to have them have like 2 different like kind of warring werewolf packs. Southern edge of South Shanty is swamped with mist. So what are some interesting features or descriptions about these? Like what makes these shanties unique, right? Southern edge of South Shanty is like the mists kind of like cut it off a little bit. What's the difference between north and south? They both have water access, so neither of them is necessarily like more sort of like, you know, maritime than the other. They both have access to these roads that would presumably have been near the farms, right? I'm thinking about like The Witcher has a lot of areas like that where it's like the outside of Novigrad. You know, there's those little communities. Are they tents? Maybe there's a lot more Vistani out there, but I feel like the Vistani can come and go. You know, maybe the Vistani were originally like banned from entering into the city by the vampires, and so like a lot of those places were built by Vistani. Yeah, there's like the humans have a heavy, well, but if they were Vistani, they could leave. So that doesn't really make sense, right? They wouldn't stay there and get eaten by these vampires if they were Vistani, because they would have the power to come and go through the domains. I'm trying to think. North Wintergate makes me think it's got something to do with like, yeah, which way is the woods and which way is the farms? That's interesting. I like that. Yeah, maybe there's a big forest to the north, Shadowrunner. That's cool. Okay. Although, you know, looking at the map, it looks like there's more like density to the north, which implies not forest, but it implies farming. So maybe to the north is where there's the farms, right? And then like the Lord Square district, which again we'll change the name of, is where there's the forest. I like that, Shadowrunner, because again they would be out hunting, right? When the mists had receded. What does that mean for the structures, right? What does it mean for the town itself? If one of them is more farming based and one of them is more logging, you know, beyond just, okay, you know, that's what they did there. It is I think important to note. Maybe we even say that like this kind of area here, sort of in between the like, you know, Wintergate, like this stuff, there's the forest, right? This big thick forest here, which isn't necessarily depicted on this map. That'd be the south. So the north would just have like farms to the north here. the breadbasket of the city. North Shanty was home to many, but they're all densely packed in like that. It almost feels like they were refugees or something, right? Like, why are they so like smushed up? I mean, ooh, yeah. What if the point was that like when the mists were originally encroaching, all the farmers were pressed into this tightly packed area, right? Oh, I'm weirdly getting a call. I wonder what that's about. Yeah, I'm not sure. Just gonna let it go to voicemail. Like, who calls anyone anymore? Pressing the slightly packed area against the city walls. They're once again fleeing back to the original shanty. Yeah, the original shanty. So like there are farms to the north, but the reason they're all packed in is that like when the mist started to encroach, people were fleeing them and they ended up kind of like smushed into the edges here, which is I think why it's a lot more crowded than it is to the south, because these are legitimately people who work the forest, right? That's to the south. Okay. So I think North Shanty is like squalid. North Shanty, squalid and crowded and riven by poverty. North Shanty is the poorest district. It's the poorest district and separated from their farms. The people can't do much to contribute or to keep themselves fed. Great. Yeah. So I think it's like it's the most crowded, it's the most like sort of destitute, right? You get a little bit of that like here kind of in the you know, in between, yeah, like this area has some of that too, right? Like the wall is technically there, but this is kind of the shantiest part of the inner city, I think. Well, there's some of it down over here too in Chalkmill. Okay, yeah, I think that's pretty good. Inhabitants. So, you know, definitely poor peasants without the means to fend for themselves. Easy prey for monsters. But then there's a werewolf pack. A werewolf pack. What is the difference? We have these two kind of feuding werewolf packs. What is their beef? What is the thing that splits the two of them? I think they're both werewolves. Like, were-rats and were-ravens also exist, but I don't think that they are, like, involved. I think they're not as powerful or as influential as the wolves. So, like, we have this schism between these two wolf packs, one to the north and one to the south. Is it a Montague Capulet thing where it's an ancient rivalry? Is it a personal beef? Like, how long ago did this happen? Like, they used to hunt in the city during the reign of the Dark Lord, and then they were pushed from the city by Van Richten, right? So, like, the conceit is that they, like, maybe they were enemies before. Like, it feels like it's a Montague Capulet thing, right? Like, it's two different factions that can't reconcile. But it's not just like a personal beef, it's like an ancient blood feud. Yeah. Separated, feuding, locked in an ancient blood feud with the wolves of the southern pack, rules this area. I think, like, you know, you could make some very simple delineations. You could say that one of the packs is a lot more animalistic and bloodthirsty, right? You could say that one of the packs is a little bit more human, right? You could say that you can't do like a night-day thing. Like, I mean, I don't mind them having some kind of a, like, I like it being almost an Icelandic saga thing where they're constantly killing each other, right, to like address grievances. You know, well, like, this guy killed my brother, so now I have to go kill his father, and then, like, goes back and forth, like these endless kind of blood games. Like, maybe the point is that you can't really tell the difference, that they aren't all that different. They are kind of one thing, and that, like, part of Von Richten's kind of strategy was to fracture them. I kind of like that, actually. There's little meaningful distinction between the two packs. It's an artificial struggle cooked up by Von Richten. Cooked up by Von Richten to conquer, to divide them. Yeah, I kind of like that. That, like, there really isn't much, because, you know, my instinct is, like, what are the big, like, philosophical differences? But there aren't any. Like, it's actually just kind of almost political theater that's been perpetrated on them, right? This narrative that the werewolves to the south are, you know, cowards and thieves and all this stuff, right? And they're trying to avenge these wrongs that both sides really have a lot more in common than they don't. I think that's cool. Okay. I'd like to think of, like, one more kind of supernatural or, like, tropey kind of inhabitant in the North Shanty. I don't think that it's, like, we have the Golem Guard or whatever, but I don't think it's that. We have 3 hags, right? We've got, like, a Scrooge, like, kind of a moneylender hag who will lend you years of their life to extend your life. We have, like, a Sweeney Todd, kind of a baker, you know, who puts, like, stolen souls into food. And then we have Jack the Ripper, who's a hag who steals souls and then sells them to their coven sister. So we have 3 hags with like each kind of hitting different sort of pulp or penny dreadful stuff. We've got the Ghoul Guard. That's what they're called. Yeah, the Ghoul Guard is the, like, police force of flesh golems. Sherlock Holmes. We've got the Vistani, and there's, like, a Phantom of the Opera. So none of those really jump out to me. I'm trying to think, like, are there monsters that come from the mists, right? I kind of like that, like mist monsters. I don't know what they would be, like ghosts, I suppose. Could be Vistani that are out here, right? Like, that they have little way stations. I don't hate that. But, like, almost like a Stephen King thing where, like, that's where the like, monsters emerge from the mists. We also don't have any like, zombies. Yeah, like, where's the graveyard? You know? Maybe one of these districts in the center of the city is, like, a big graveyard. I kind of think that's cool. So our options are, like, mist monsters, some, like, faction of the humans. Like, I almost want to do, like, a Cathars thing. A shady protection vendor. Yeah, probably. Some kind of a criminal enterprise I could see. Shady protection. Maybe that Oni we talked about? Yeah, that's cool. Like, a criminal gang run by an Oni. I like that. A criminal gang run by an Oni. Although maybe that's the docks, you know? I'm not sure. Like, something about, because Onis are all about, an Oni is all about, like, dreams, right? Well, we'll come back to it. I like the idea of a criminal gang run by an Oni. It might not go here, necessarily. Okay, we're going to go into the city itself. Although, you know what? Let's maybe cover the South Shanty while we're here. So I think we have the history. This place was... a gang of juice-inducing Mr. Hyde types. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I like Oni Mob Boss. I just wonder, are they out here in the slums, or are they in the dock district? I kind of think they're in the dock district. Ooh, ex-Vistani is kind of cool, too. So let's say that there are Vistani out here. Vistani taverns and way stations on the fringes. Right. Let's go under Harbor and put the Oni Mob Boss, because I like that idea. I want to do something with, like, dreams. Maybe there's, like, a drug or a substance you can take that you know, prevents you from having nightmares or something like that. Like, that's kind of cool. That's what the drug is, right? It just prevents you from being horrified. Yeah, I like that. An Oni Mob Boss. who runs a racket selling drugs. And like we probably won't call them drugs because they're kids, right? But like selling, you know, a service that allows you to sleep peacefully without nightmares. Okay, cool. Vistani smugglers? Yeah, Vistani smugglers. A Vistani smuggling ring. A Vistani smuggling ring moving. Although would they be, yeah, I keep thinking anything that's out here on the fringes would be cooler in the harbor. Because I like the idea of like Vistani boats, right? Like that's neat to me. I feel like that's not something we see very often. Like they can plane shift or to smuggle goods, and they know bizarre magical paths to transport contraband. I love the idea of Vistani smugglers. I just don't know if they're out here. I kind of think that there is a monster like coming out of the mists, right? Or there's like a zombie curse or something, right? Out in the North Shanty. That's what I think. Because I think we need to increase the feeling that they are being like pressed in. And then you can maybe even make some argument that like the werewolves in the North are kind of protecting the people against this threat because they need the people to be alive, right? So Vistani smugglers using the harbor to move goods into and out of the city. Yeah, Vistani are in general lore about travel through the mists. Yeah, exactly. So that's my point, right? Like, they're normally in wagons, and I think they could definitely come and go in wagons, but I like the idea of doing, like, Vistani seacraft, right? That like, we've never really seen Vistani sailors before. I think that could be kind of cool. So I like the idea of, like, monsters that emerge from the mists. From the mists, zombies, horrors, ghosts, that the werewolves do battle with to preserve their human population. That it almost has this kind of like endless monster machine thing, just like churning them out. Okay, that's cool. Let me do the South Shanty while we're talking about shanties. So I like the idea of there being like a thick forest. A thick forest. Ooh, scarecrows are kind of cool. Scarecrows. Or like, ooh, like twig blights? Like plant monsters? It's kind of neat, like evil crops. Yeah, I think that's definitely how they're meant to kind of feel, Hunter Fox. They're definitely inspired by the Romany. Although I believe in Golden Compass they use kind of a slur to describe them, which is not great. Yeah, but I think that's definitely the tone. And that's, I think, how they're presented mostly in Ravenloft, that the Vistani are like, kind of, you know, travelers living in wagons and you know, kind of moving between the different domains. So it's these like nomadic people that are the only people that can travel through the domains without, you know, getting lost in the mist. I like the idea of like their crops turning against them. I think plant monsters and scarecrows, there are a lot of blights, that's true. But I think the idea of like their crops turning, if they're from the farms, that something like the mist is doing something weird to their farms, and it's making the plants and things come after them. That's cool. I like that. I can even see a plot about like getting in a Vistani wagon and going that way, right? And then having to go find the source of it, right? There's a tree blight or something back in there that's making all these twig blights. Yeah, I think that's cool. That it's plant blight, or it's like bark blights and stuff like that. Okay, cool. Great. Yeah. Scarecrows for sure. I think it could be scarecrows too. I like the idea of like farm things. So it's, God, you know what it reminds me of? If you play Darkest Dungeon, there's a DLC called The Color Out of Space, The Color of Time, and it's like about a meteor that crashes into a farm and it causes a bunch of weird eldritch abominations. But they're all like, you know, farm hands and horses and, you know, scarecrows and stuff. So I think it's definitely something similar. That's cool. Like the encroachment of the rural onto the urban. So then to the south, we have this big forest, right? Similarly, in the South Shanty. Yeah, Hunter Fox is on there. Mushroom Corpse is like from the Weald in Darkest Dungeon. Yeah, exactly. A thick forest to the south. Its borders were constantly besieged, or where its borders provided ample fuel for the city. During the light years, werewolves hunted in these woods. So does something come out of these mists too? Like, I don't know that I feel like that's a little too similar, right? I feel like people in South Shanty or Lord's Square or whatever are like a little bit more resilient in some way, right? Like they weren't like forced to be there. They have always lived on the edge of the forest. So, you know, you could do evil trees or whatever, you know. I mean, it could just be as simple as that like a lot of the forest is still there, but anyone who ventures into it never returns, right? Like sinister animated trees fringe the city, and where once the loggers could safely enter it, now none who do so return. Like, it's okay. I'm not in love with it, right? But I like that idea that, like, rather it's not because it's not as crowded as you can see, right? Like, there's plenty of kind of space here compared to here, where it's like really like tightly packed. Ooh, a Treant Guardian. That's cool. That, like, did Von Richten make a pact with them, right? It feels like if you're gonna do Twig Blights in the north, though, you know. I don't hate the idea of a Treant, but I feel like we've already got Twig Blights up there. You know, you could do more of like a Great Pumpkin thing or something, right? Like kind of jack-o'-lanterns. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think we leave the forest to be more of a mystery, right? We don't really know what's going on in there. Maybe that they're animated trees. Maybe people just get lost. You know, maybe there's a figure of some kind. I think we can leave that. If anyone has like a great idea, obviously feel free to shout it out. Great. So then, like, inhabitants, I think we have the loggers, right? So it's once again poor peasants, but I think these are like hardy woodsmen, well acquainted with the danger of living on the. Ooh, that's cool. An ooze with the dangers of living on the fringe. Pack of a werewolf pack. Ooh, yeah, like an ooze is interesting. If it's like tree sap, yeah. Oozes are cool. Yeah, that also makes me think about Darkest Dungeon, right? There are those like jellies that have the people in it. Yeah, something about like the amber of that is cool. Like tree sap. I don't hate that. Do they like try to mine it or something, right? Like, is there some value to it? Maybe it's an ingredient in the drug. Yeah, I think that's cool. Like, magical amber from the surrounding trees that, when properly processed, makes a drug that the Oni mob boss sells. But, like, that kind of animates the trees and makes them dangerous, right? Like, whatever it is. So you have to kind of go in. I think the werewolves, do they tolerate it? Do they try to stop the like production of it? I like the idea that like these areas here, kind of on the, this is I guess technically Wintergate, but like sort of on the south and east side are more kind of like almost drug slums, where like people who have gotten addicted to the amber end up going and living there. Ooh, I like that, Hunter Fox. If it's like a druid thing, yeah, rather than hardy woodsman, it's like a forest cult. Yes, cool. A forest cult who reveres the sap and collects it for use in the drug. Or like, I think they did, because again, we've had this long period where let's do this. Jane, put that there. A once dormant forest cult, now devoted, now reawakening as night returns, to the city. Hardy, like loggers and foresters. Yeah, that's cool. Foresters used to life on the fringes. Because then I think they can be like they're in conflict with the werewolf pack. Yeah, that's cool. I like that as well. Yep. Cool. I think that's nice. I dig that. Okay, let's start talking about the rest of these districts. We're flying through this. Nice job, everybody. So let's go to the harbor maybe, because I feel like we already have some ideas for that. So it's like the dockside district. I really like this notion of like a waterscape that has been cut off by the mist, right? So no ships can get through that aren't Vistani ships. And so it's just like harbor that serves no purpose, right? No ships are coming in, or you know, vastly fewer ships are coming in. Normally in like Victorian London, the docks were always the most like diverse, right? You would have people from all different parts of the world were kind of like ended up living there. It was like a big Chinese population in you know, Limehouse and the kind of like port side parts of London. Not that London's not a port, but you know, the river. So like I like some of that, but I feel like, you know, it would have been closed off, although it's just recently been closed off again. So I mean, maybe because it's only been a couple of days, I wonder if you have a thing where like there's a lot of ships that are now grounded. Yeah, that's cool. So inhabitants, an Oni mob boss, like a wide array of foreigners and people now trapped, forced to live on their ships, all anchored in the harbor. You know, whatever ships were anchored in the harbor are now stuck there, you know? Yeah, the Emperor is just one part of the drug racket. Yeah, they're supplied. The Oni is supplied by the Druid cult, but, you know, they still have to process it and stuff like that. Yeah. Cool. So, let's talk about history. Yeah, I honestly think it's this. It's like, when the mists re-emerged, when the mists reappeared, a small flotilla of merchant ships became entrapped in the bay and now cannot leave. I kind of like the idea of doing something similar with, you know, how we have the plants, the crops. So there's this little building and this little building. I almost like the idea that maybe there was some kind of a chain or something, that like there was a monster, or there were like, you know, you could do like Coatoa, right? You want to do like an Innsmouth thing. Yeah, right. Definitely. I think you get a lot of interesting drama. Shadowrunner says, imagining one ship captain is more irate at the docking fees, right? Yeah, they're being charged for staying there. But I like the idea of a, you know, there were like dangerous things coming from the water, and so they erected like yeah, let's see. When the mists originally fell upon the harbor, so too did terrible wet things from below. You know, you put an aboleth in the bay if you want. The people banded together and constructed an improvised seawall made from the hulks of their ships to protect the harbor. They only dismantled it when the mists left. I don't think they disbanded. I think it's still there. So there's like, you know, ships can kind of come and go one at a time. So I think there's like a weird like wall between here and here that's made up of like broken ship parts, like a barricade, right? Yeah, I think that's cool. And like, because it's mostly underwater, I think it like partially comes up. You can see masts and spars and things, but it's mostly underwater, and it sort of prevents the creatures from coming through. And there's a, you know, like an iron portcullis they can raise and lower. So let's put that under description. Out to sea is the seawall. In the bay looms the broken spars and snapped masts of the seawall, meant to protect the city from invaders, from undersea invaders. Ooh, there's got to be like a Gatsby-esque, like a green light that flashes at dusk and that sometimes lures people out into the bay where they disappear. The city district is full of broth, or not broth, they're 12-year-olds, right? Full of taverns and warehouses. I keep forgetting that this is for kids. Brothels and bordellos. No, none of those. Full of taverns and warehouses, rowdy. I like the idea of a, yeah, seaweed and barnacle portcullis. That's cool. I like the idea of like an overly jolly sentiment here. People trying to drink away their despair. It's a little bit like Valaki in Curse of Strahd, right? That town that's like always throwing a festival. I think there's like, you know, a lot of music, and it's noisy and like loud, and everyone's kind of like, haha, like plastered on happiness, right? I think it's very creepy. I like that. Okay, cool. I think a lot of that comes from the drug, right? Like whatever we call it. So then we have 4 more. I think Cherry Knot might be our necropolis. Obviously, we'll change the name of it, right? But like history. I like the idea of like a big graveyard right in the middle of the city. I think that's cool. Description: a fenced-in necropolis with wrought iron fences, wrought iron gates, high protective walls, high walls and high walls, high walls, tunnels, underground catacombs that connect throughout the city, that connect older layers of the city. I want there to be, yeah, okay, so what's the history of this necropolis? Like, I like that it's not off to the side, it's like weirdly right in the middle. My initial instinct is that it is, ooh, yeah, it's like, so inhabitants, protected by the Ghoul Guard. Yeah, that's a good question, Chat Owner. Like, I think if it has a gothic vibe, I think they're like very concerned with like graves and memoriams and stuff like that, right? Like big stone angels. Yeah, like very elaborate, like over the top mausoleums. And the like. You know, over the top mausoleums, gargoyles, stone angels, like some real like Joel Schumacher type shit. Protected by the Ghoul Guard, ever vigilant for the Walking Dead. I like the idea that like in the early days the Ghoul Guard would have basically plundered these tombs, right? Ooh, what if there's a thing where you, like, if someone dies, you have to submit them to the Ghoul Guard? Ugh, that's messed up. Yeah. Like, rather than burying them anymore, like, hey, what's up, M. Grant? Thanks for coming. Yeah, I like that idea. So I'm just gonna write down my other document here. Ooh, the hero is buried in place. Yeah, that's cool. Because Von Richten is kind of like the previous hero, and he's definitely still alive. But like, I think it's almost more a vanity thing. I think it's like, you know, this is the 15th. Ooh, grave dirt golems are awesome. That's cool. Let me just write this idea down. When someone in the city dies, the ghoul guard comes to collect them. Ahem, ahem, you do the math. Horrifying. So yeah, I think it's like, again, it's like a big vanity thing, right? Like that's where the nobles used to entomb their dead, and it was all about like outdoing each other with these like increasingly more elaborate displays. I think there had to have been like some kind of a like when the Dark Lord came, right? When Strahd sort of like married Tatiana and took over the city, like what would have happened to the necropolis? Would the dead just spontaneously have started to rise? Like, I don't hate that idea. Maybe the original Ghoul Guard were like, yeah, when Strahd, or when the Prince Consort arose. Oh, we got a bot. Let me get rid of them. Last time I fell for this. Remove. Ooh, I like that. Yeah. Hunter Fox says, what if the amber is actually used to entomb the dead, especially the rich or venerable, to preserve the dead for some later purpose? Yeah, that's cool. Before the coming of the Prince Consort. The dead were entombed, still alive, in the amber. Like, as you got older, right? No, I have not heard of Oliver Darkshire's City of Eyes. I should check it out. That sounds cool. I bet. Yeah, that sounds like a good resource. Thanks for the recommendation, M. Grant. In the amber, when the Prince Consort came, so it's almost like a cryogenics thing, right? Like, we're entombed in the amber. They were resurrected and became vampires, right? They're like, that was their solution. Oh, here's how we'll do it. Cool. I do like the idea of like the poor dead were transformed into zombies who patrolled the streets and collected victims for the vampires, for the lazier vampires. So like the Ghoul Guard, right, is Von Richten's answer to the original kind of like zombie like hordes that would go through the cities and go through the streets and grab people to be eaten, right? So like that's where the idea comes from. Now the Ghoul Guard guards the necropolis, worried that more zombies will come out, right? So like I think the rich people definitely were entombed in the amber, and I like that because you can get some like people who are super old. But the poor were probably just like heaped up in mass graves, or like maybe it was almost an Egyptian thing where like a lot of servants were entombed or killed along with their, you know, their masters or whatever. That's kind of like an older way of thinking of it. But I like the idea that there is like almost like a core sample that like there's the really wealthy people, and then like beneath them in like big mass graves are a bunch of the like the servants and the city's poor, right? So that way when the dead came out, they came crawling out in huge numbers. Yeah, but they were under Strahd and the Duchess's thrall, so it wasn't obviously. Then when he died, they like the rest of them that were around like ran amok. Yeah, when he died, the rest of the zombies ran amok. Ooh, incinerated and turned into the bricks. That's pretty bad. Or amok. Excuse me, amok. That's pretty yucky. Okay, inhabitants, so we're talking about the Ghoul Guard, ever vigilant for the waking dead, entombed, yeah, for the poor, exactly. I got you, M. Grant. trying to think, like, what else is there? So, like, ghosts definitely make sense, right? But, like, of whom, you know, have they, like, sealed it off? Yeah, I think it's, like, sealed off now. Well, that's kind of implied, right? But, like, it's almost like nobody knows what's going on in there. I kind of think that's cool. Sealed off, or, like, what are some other things that could live there? Obviously, there'd be horrors in the catacombs. We've talked about that already. But, like, I like the idea that that beyond the Ghoul Guard, you know, you're not allowed to go in there anymore. Maybe we'll leave it there with the Ghoul Guard protecting it. The point is that you don't go into the necropolis. Yeah, I dig that. We only have 3 more districts left, you guys. We're flying through. Okay. So, looking at this, we have North District here, right? And we have Chalk Mill here, and we have Rainway down here. I think North District is maybe, like, one of these two has to be the Noble District. I don't think it's Rainway. I think it's maybe North District, right? Ooh, yeah, Ancient Relics. That's cool. Would have been sealed in there with them. Oh, let me put that, actually. Huge mass graves beneath the more opulent mausoleums. How do you spell? I don't know how to spell that word. Leave me alone. Filled with the dead servants killed by the ancient progenitors. Okay. So North District, I think, is like the Noble District. Again, these names are going to change. They're just the names they gave me. History. The Noble District, where the wealthy of the city dwell. North District was populated largely by vampires during the Dark Years, whatever, the Endless Night, during the Endless Night. So then, like, description would be, you know, opulent manors with wrought iron fences. You know, where do the upper crust live, essentially? Trying to think of, like, interesting stuff there. So a lot of them would have been rooted out, right? When Von Richten came back and kind of reclaimed the city, he drove most of the vampires into hiding, into exile, right? So, like, I feel like he's like installed new nobles. Yeah, that's cool. When Von Richten drove the vampires away, he installed new nobles in North District, you know, but polices them often to ensure they don't succumb to vampirism. Guard dogs and blink hounds. Yeah, that's cool. Like shadow mastiffs, maybe. I dig that. Animated armor. Yeah, that's cool. I could see that. Inhabitants. Shadow mastiffs. I like the idea that they're very secretive, right? Like, the manors are very secretive and quiet, but, like, openly pious. I think they make a big stink about, like, donating to the Church of the Morning Lord, right? Of the Morning Lord, like, big, like, yeah, like a heavy religious theme. I think that's cool. A heavy religious theme. Noble North, cut stone homes, well-fitting window shutters, and servant entrances and carriage houses. Yeah, right. Ooh, let me make a point about the carriages. Iron fences, carriages clattering. I like, yeah, the idea of it almost being like the Temple District, right? That they're very, like, over the top about how religious they are, and the sun this, and the Morning Lord that, and, like, they're really trying to kind of play it up to that way they don't, you know, imply to Von Richten that they have something to hide. I kind of think that's cool. Definitely, M. Grant, 100%. Maybe a couple of the nobles are still vampires. Absolutely. Right? Yep. Shadow, I think they're very private. I think a lot of them have, like skeletons in the closet. Animated armor. all manner of guards and precautions. Like, they're all, ooh, yeah, they're all, like, all manner of precautions for the day Von Richten roots them out. Because, again, the idea with Von Richten is that he's overzealous, right? He's the Dark Lord. He's the one who's causing this sense of paranoia and terror in the city. So, like, everyone has to be on some level afraid of him, right? All manner of precautions. They're worried. They're fearful of the day that Von Richten turns on them. Like, one of our characters is a noble whose family openly worships the Morning Lord, but secretly worships Mother Night, who is the kind of, like, you know, polar opposite deity. So we already have some basis for that. I like the idea that, yeah, all the manors have, like, elaborate traps and wards and things against the day when Von Richten comes knocking. Yeah, that's cool. I'm into that. Carriages clattering. I'm trying to think if there's, like, other stuff. Ooh, let's put gargoyles. Yeah, I think a lot of the houses are... Yeah, there you go, Shadowrunner. You and I are, like, right in sync. Gargoyles. That, like, the houses are protected by gargoyles. I almost want that in the, like, name, right? So then one of the inhabitants are, like, the church, right? The Church of the Morning Lord. In addition to the nobles, right? Like, well-attended services, you know, like, parsons who go into the poorer districts to sort of service them, Cathars or inquisitors to hunt the unfaithful. Ooh, yeah, inquisitors to hunt the unfaithful. Hey, what's up, Matthew? The unfaithful. That, like, almost a 1984 thing where, like, a lot of the nobles are corrupt, right, or vampiric, as M. Grant suggests, but they, like, the church will, like, kind of be used as a weapon against other families, right? That, like, that's kind of the sort of, like, the I saw Goody Proctor with the devil type stuff. Ooh, devils. Yeah, several of the families. Ooh, topiaries is good. Yeah, elaborate topiaries and gardens surrounding each manor. That's cool. Several of the families are hiding secrets, cult worship, demon summoning, right? Like, overt vampirism. Yeah, cool. That's the normal. I like that. That's really, there's a lot there actually to deal with. That's cool. Oh, they're reskinned treants. That's fun. Yeah, or like shambling mounds. I think I've definitely done a shambling mound topiary before. Yeah, where you get like swallowed into the, like, you know, it looks like a rhino or an elephant or whatever. Yeah, that I have 100% done. Okay, so then we have Chalkmill. I think either Chalkmill, I actually like both of those two names. I probably won't keep them. But either Chalkmill or Rainway is the kind of, like, working class district, right? We have the harbor, we have, like, the poor kind of outskirts. We need, like, the slums in the city. Chalkmill kind of feels like that to me. Like, Rainway is, like, working class, and Chalkmill is the slums. Because it's right here in the shadow of the palace, which I actually really like that. This is, like, interior slums, right? Like, factories? Yeah, because mill, right? Like, I like that a lot. That it's got that kind of industrial revolution thing where it's, like, constantly pouring out pollution. Yeah, an Orcus cultist, definitely. I think that's cool. The industrial district, Chalkmill, or whatever its name is. I don't hate Chalkmill. Chalkmill is where the poor dwell in numbers and work in death factories, polluting the sky. What are they making? Like what's the industry of Falcon, right? Like my thinking is that, like, it was something bad, right? Or it was like before the Dark Lord came at all, it would have just been like something, right? Something like lumber mills or something like that, right? But then the Dark Lord came, and maybe that's where they refined the amber. A chalk mill. I mean, maybe it is just a chalk mill. I don't actually know how chalk is made at all, but, like, it could just be that. Like, I wonder if, yeah, if it's a bone mill. Bone meal is ready. You know, it was something before. Like, you know, maybe it was like an Amazon thing where like it used to be just like, you know, poorer residences, and then, you know, the coming of the Dark Lord, they converted it into a kind of industrial area, right? And started to like pollute the sky and do a bunch of nastiness, right? But then Von Richten came and defeated the Dark Lord, but still kind of kept it for like, my instinct is like silver smelting, right? Like, is he making, you know, what he needs to fight vampires? You know, something like that. Like the notion of he's come in and he said, okay, no, you don't have to do this evil anymore. You have to do this good, but it's just as oppressive to them. So like, I guess holy water, but holy water isn't something you would make in a factory, right? Like, I kind of like a silver mine, or like a smelter, you know? But it could be chalk, right? Chalk is like often used in that kind of ritual. So maybe there's a bunch of them. Like he's converted a bunch of the factories, right? So like, there's a chalk mill, and a silver smelter, right? To try to ensure like everyone in the city has silver if they need it. I'm trying to think if there's another, like, what's one other thing, like an salt mine, like a salt refinery. I don't know. Do you refine salt? A salt refinery. All things used to hunt vampires, right? Despite, like, while the Dark Lord is overthrown, now they're oppressed by the forces of good, right? By the forces of good. I like that. Description. So it's like tight alleys and cramped, like vertical buildings that cling to warehouses. Great factories. I actually don't hate crematoriums, M. Grant, but again, if they're entombing all of the dead, they're either giving the dead to the Ghoul Guard to make more. Yeah, chalk I think is great, actually. Great factories and warehouses, constantly belching toxins into the air. Trying to think like what else would be in, like, I think this is where there's like the thickest smogs and like mists. Not mist, but like smog, right? Smogs and smoke that drifts through the streets. Citizens having to cover their faces, right? Wherever they go. That's maybe a little real, but you know, you understand, right? Ooh, yeah, that's cool. I think there's a lot of stuff, right? I think it's a ton of those kinds of things. I like the idea of specifically Von Richten turning over the industries and making them produce things that would help them defeat monsters in the future, kind of like in anticipation of the day when this happens. I think Chalk Mill is where our hags are located. Inhabitants. So we have 3 hags. There's the Soul Ripper, the Baker, and the Lone Shark. All operate here in Chalk Mill. I might just call it Chalk Mill. Okay, I like that. Those casting molds for fine. Yeah, it has practical use for sure, but I also like that he would try to focus it on, okay, make sure every house has chalk and every house has silver weapons and every house has holy symbols and things like that, right? Like, so what other like creatures live here? Obviously there's like, you know, horrible indentured workers. I like that it's like lots of orphans, right? Orphans are common here as parents tend to die in industrial accidents. So there's like gangs of local ruffians that prowl the streets. Yeah, that's cool. I want something supernatural. We've got the hags, we've got the orphans. If it's like an industrial area, chalk block. I don't like chalk block. Chalk block. If it's an industrial area, What's another kind of like cool monster that could be there? Jock block. Let me look. I mean, this could be where the ghoul guard is made, right? I don't hate that either. Yeah. Because then we could include M. Grant's idea about the crematorium, right? Yeah. So I think it's like Stitchers. This is where the ghoul guard. This is where Frankenstein operates and maintains his ghoul guard. Ghoul guard. Bodies are brought to him. Bodies. Oh, little soot balls is cute. Yeah, bodies are brought to him, and unneeded parts are incinerated. Incinerated. Cool. We only have one district left, y'all, but I don't know what it is. So I love the name Rainway, but I'm not sure what would be there. So let's go through it. We have like two shanty towns. We have kind of like a farming shanty town. We have sort of like a lumber shanty town where they process this like magical amber. We have the harbor, which has, you know, ships and taverns, and it has this kind of like false sense of joy. It also has a crime syndicate run by an oni. We have the big necropolis in the center of the city. We have the kind of noble district. We have the workers district here in Chalkmill. Ooh, corrupt elementals. Yeah, like smog elementals. I like that. Smog elementals. Smog elementals. We can put like, you know, soot sprites. Soot sprites. Like smog methods is great. I guess it'd just be smoke methods, but smoke methods, etc. I like that a lot. But then what's in Rainway? So we're kind of sandwiched. There's a little bit of seaside here. We got the harbor on one side, got Chalkmill to the north, and we got like this shanty here. You know, like what do we think this is? Like, I wouldn't, like, maybe a traveler's district, you know, like inns and stuff if it's near the road, but like I'm trying to figure out what that would be in terms of, it could be like sort of a middle class thing. Like what's the like, ooh, meat processing, ooh, for the whole district? That might be a little much. I think that could still be in Chalkmill. I think like Chalkmill is like processing and industrial. Like what's going on in Rainway? So like we have, we don't have like a temple district, I guess. But we have like, there's such a heavy religious theme in North District that it feels like we need a different angle here. I don't want like a college or anything like that. That feels too educated. It could be like an old city thing, right? Where it's like the old ruins, but I think it's more of a Rome thing where it's like the old ruins are below. So like Traveler's District, you know, inns and taverns. But again, if the point of the city is that it's kind of like been enclosed for so long, I don't think people would really have that again. And it feels to me a lot like the harbor. Like the harbor is kind of the Traveler's District, right? So we don't need that. Like, what's the theme here? What's the point of this part of the city? Entertainment? I kind of like that. I kind of like a red light district. Right, you'd have to be careful because, yeah, let's do red light. So you have to be careful because they're kids, right? So you don't want any brothels. But if it's like theaters, like, yeah, the theater district. Because we have this like Phantom of the Opera character as well. So theater district, yeah, I love that. Okay. History. Description. You know, bright marquees. Yeah, entertainment, yeah, totally, David, I love that. I want to call it something row. Bright marquees. Now faded. Yeah, it's like all these like kind of failed productions and stuff. Now faded and dilapidated. Advertised. Dilapidated? Who knows? Advertised. Defunct shows. Starving artists and musicians on every corner. There's the like the big theater, right? The opera house, all centered around the opera house, where the Grand Guignol or whatever Guignol is staged. So we have a character like a Phantom of the Opera style, who kind of dramatizes the history of the city and the events of the campaign, where it's like kind of about like how the city perceives these things, right? I think that's cool. What's the history of it, of the theater district? I'm trying to think, like, did it it feels like some of the vampires would have imported, but it's also so far away from the palace, right? They'd have to cross through Chalk Mill to get to it. It also feels like it's kind of a a natural byproduct of the harbor. I could see something with that, right? I like theater. Entertainment district. Like it feels like again, similar to the harbor, like an attempt to try to distract from the kind of like horror, right? Like, yeah, maybe it's all centered on the all centered on the opera house. Like, once a kind of like abandoned warehouse district, now theater is all attempting to ape the success of the massive opera house, right? That like there was one place that opened up this opera house, or like, ooh, what if it was once, rather than it being warehouses, once the temple district, when the vampires took over the city and outlawed the worship of the Morning Lord. The cathedral was transformed into an opera house. Similar theaters opened nearby, and its sense become a lively theater district. So then actually what you would have too is you would have like a like one temple. So you'd have inhabitants. The church retook a temple in the theater district and is attempting to like chastise the merrymakers. You could maybe even do kind of a Rakdos thing, right? Where you get these like weird clowns, right? Like strange and violent clowns. It's kind of the like delights thing, right? Like these wicked ends, these wicked delights have wicked ends or whatever, right? From Westworld, right? Like kind of playing with the idea that like since death was so like, yeah, almost a Rakdos vibe, they cavort and cause havoc and mock the people in power. Maybe there's a demon, like maybe a demon runs this circus, you know, similar to Rakdos, and presides over the chaos. I kind of like that, right? Like it keeps it very like there's something about like clowns that's terrifying too, right? So you get a little bit of that kind of like It style horror. Okay, hey guys, nice work everyone. This is so productive. Look at all this stuff that we came up with. Let's go through it. We have North Shanty, Wintergate. I'll come up with names on my own. I'm very picky about names. This is kind of like a squalid shanty town. When the mists encroach, it pushed a lot of the farmers from the north. The producers, the bounty of farming. Yeah, that's very funny. It pushed the farmers up against the city's walls, and they're now kind of living in squalor. They're protected by a werewolf pack that does occasionally hunt them for meat. And monsters, sort of like twig blights, are kind of coming out of the mists to attack them, and they're held off by the werewolves. We have Chalk Mill here, which is like kind of the industrial district, full of factories that are churning out chalk and silver and salt. It's sort of tight alleys and cramped. What is this? Alleys. It's very cramped. They've got hags and orphans, smog elementals, Frankenstein's shops are all here in Chalk Mill. Cherry Knot is the big, obviously these names will change, but is the big necropolis in the center of the city, protected by the Ghoul Guard. It's got like mass graves full of zombies, but then also like preserved ancestors in amber. There's the harbor district here, where it's got the kind of seawall that protects it, and then it's got a bunch of stranded mariners as well as Vistani smugglers, and an Oni crime ring that moves the amber that allows people to sleep at night. We've got Rainway, or the theater district, which was once the temple district, but then during the reign of the vampires was converted into this kind of like bacchanal crazy theater district where there's these horrifying death clowns that run around in this grand opera house. We have the South Shanty, which was kind of like a logging community that's on the edge of this great forest, which I'm definitely going to give some kind of a cool like Slavic name like Underwald or whatever, right? Or Germanic name. Now it's the source of the magical amber, but the forest is dark and Hunter Fox asks, do you reorganize this doc so you can run it, or you just keep the format this way? This is for note taking. I probably will keep the document this way, but I will probably, if the players see it, I'll kind of keep it streamlined. And just do, hey, these are the things you need to know. This is kind of like when I do streams, I just kind of stream of consciousness. See what I did there? Go through the different ideas and then synthesize them down. I'm bad at note taking though. Don't use my system. It's very bad. Yeah, so the amber is harvested from, and there's like a strange kind of wood cult that is worships the amber and wants to bring it back. And then we have the palace. The palace is once the seat of the Archduchess and her prince consort. Now it's massive and abandoned, and it's got different threats on different levels. There are horrors that stalk the catacombs below. There's thick vampiric mist on the middle floor, as well as a haunted mirror that projects images of old ghosts. And then up in the higher levels is a giant spider that uses, I loved this idea, I think it was yours, Hunter, right? That uses the like animates skeletons on the end of its long threads. Great, and that is the city of Falcon, everyone. That's so much to work with. More than enough to give my players, even if I just give little descriptions of this is what's going on in this district. Tons of adventure hooks just from that brief discussion. I'm thrilled. This is awesome. Great. I mean, on that note, I feel like we're gonna call it there. It's a little early, but you guys just blasted through this so well. I want to give a shout out to everyone who came out to watch today's stream and to participate. A big shout out to David and to let's see who's here first. So David, and then Hunter, Shadowner, M Grant. I think Matthew appeared for just a second. Yeah, it was a great stream today, you guys. Thanks for all of your Schneiderwald. That's cool. Thanks for all your help and your suggestions. It's been really filled out this city in record time. I kind of thought this might be a multiple stream thing, but nope, you guys blasted it out of the park. That's great. I can't wait to show this to my players. Great. If you like the stream, please subscribe to the channel. Like the video down below. It really helps boost the profile, get more eyes on it. We'll be streaming again on Thursday, same time, 2 p.m. We're going to be looking at the Carrion Crawler for our Monster Workshop stream. I'm excited to get back to those, but that'll be on Thursday. So come check that out. I'm trying to think. Saturday, we will have a Sea of Thieves stream right here. It'll be at 5 p.m. PST. We'll be back this week and next week with 2 Sea of Thieves streams. That's going to be exciting. And then Sunday, I should be back with a world building stream as well. So it's a big stream week for me, which is awesome. I'm looking forward to it. You can find me on Twitter. I am at ProDM Timothy. I tweet a lot about Dungeons and Dragons and a whole bunch of stuff. Go check me out there. We've got a Patreon, which you can go subscribe to. We've got a Discord as well, which is a nice, small, tight little community. Links should be below. Go check that out. But thank you so much for coming, everyone. These streams have been, I think, an important part of what allows me to process the number of games that I'm running. Just kind of like talk through them and figure out what I'm doing. And this stream in particular has been really helpful to that. So I'm very grateful for everyone who comes out and chooses to spend a couple of hours with me talking about my personal campaigns, like content you guys will never see, So it's really astonishing how many people choose to do this, because to me, this is like boring work, but apparently it's entertainment for some of you. And I'm so grateful. Great. So we'll be back on Thursday. Thanks again, everyone, for coming. And until then, happy adventuring. Oop. Ah! Which one am I going to do? I clicked on the wrong filler. Okay. Thanks, guys.